Who here remembers those acts of betrayal by Italy when they refused to support the United States at the time the US needed it most during the war with Iran? Trump is now taking brutal revenge and has opened a direct crisis with Italy after telling Italian television that Giorgia Meloni had allegedly begged him for a photo during the G7 meeting in France. Look at the way Trump looks at Meloni while she was trying to start a conversation with him at the G7. The statement exploded in the international news on Friday, June 19, 2026, because it targeted a leader who has already tried to present herself as a bridge between Washington and Europe. But now she was put in a position of public embarrassment by the President of the United States himself. Trump said he didn't need to talk to her, said he took the photo because he felt sorry, and pushed Meloni into a tough response.
So, some things deserve an immediate response. Donald Trump's statements are completely made up. Frankly, I'm shocked. I don't know why the President of the United States behaves like this with allies. In fact, it's not the first time this has happened. I just regret he lacks the same determination. Towards the enemies of the West, towards the enemies of the United States, with the leadership, with whom, on the contrary, he shows much more leniency. But there is one thing he must remember. I and Italy have never begged.
The problem is that the Italian reaction didn't stop at the statement. Antonio Tajani, Italy's Minister of Foreign Affairs, cancelled a trip to the United States. And one of the main figures in the government, Meloni, accused Trump of destroying the historic relations between the United States and Europe. That's where the episode gains political significance. Trump wasn't just taking aim at a photo. He exposed a European ally that had been wavering between pleasing Washington, following the European Union, and not breaking with the diplomatic pressure against the war in the Middle East. What did Trump want to show by humiliating Meloni? Why did Italy react with so much political fear? How can this crisis affect the game between the United States, Europe, Israel, and Iran? I'll tell you all about it in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward and no-nonsense content, consider subscribing because we have videos like this every day. The crisis began after the G7 summit in Evian-les-Bains, France, where Trump and Meloni were seen talking side by side. Trump spoke to the Italian broadcaster Lazzetti and said that Meloni really wanted a photo with him. According to the version reported by the press, Trump claimed that she begged for the photo and that he only agreed out of pity. The statement hit Rome like a blow because it came from a president who already treated European allies harshly, especially when he saw a lack of loyalty or double dealing. Meloni responded, without leaving room for silence. She stated that the story was completely made up, said she was surprised by Trump's behavior, and criticized the difference in how he treats allies and adversaries. The Prime Minister also insisted that neither she nor Italy beg. The statement was made to try to save the image of the Italian government in the face of a public humiliation, but it also showed that Rome felt the blow. When a head of government has to deny that they begged for a photo, the damage has already been done. The Italian discomfort grew even greater because Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani cancelled a trip to the United States. This gesture turned an exchange of words into a diplomatic crisis. Tajani said that Trump's words offended all of Italy, not just Meloni. The Italian government tried to respond as a nation that had been affected, because the image Trump conveyed was not of a strong leader vis-à-vis the United States, but of a prime minister seeking validation while trying to preserve room to maneuver between Washington and Brussels. Giovanni Battista Fazzolari, a close ally of Meloni and a prominent figure within the government, also stepped up the rhetoric. He accused Trump of damaging the historic relations between the United States and Europe and said that the American president was making the United States unpopular on the European continent. This reaction shows the extent of the discomfort. Meloni was once seen as one of the European leaders closest to Trump. She even attended his inauguration in 2025, but the relationship lost strength when Rome began to move more cautiously on sensitive issues such as Iran, the Vatican, and pressures from the European Union. In recent months, Meloni tried to take on the role of a bridge between Trump and European leaders, but that position became difficult. On one side, Washington was demanding real alignment. On the other side, the European Union was trying to maintain a united front against sudden changes in United States foreign policy. Meloni wanted to please everyone, and Trump usually doesn't reward that kind of ambiguity. When he senses retreat, distancing, or political calculation, he usually responds with public shaming. The comment about the photo landed just as this crisis with Italy was growing, and Trump was making a much bigger move in the Middle East. According to Axios, US officials stated that Israel and Hezbollah have agreed to a new ceasefire in Lebanon, mediated by the United States and Qatar. The goal was to try to hold the Lebanese front and allow the larger process with Iran to continue. Even so, the truce was fragile from the start. There were reports of clashes even after the scheduled time for the agreement to begin, and Israel maintained its position of continuing to operate against threats in the occupied areas of southern Lebanon. The White House wants to keep a 60-day window to test whether Tehran fulfills its part of the preliminary agreement with the United States. This deadline is meant to try to reduce hostilities, pave the way for talks about Iran's nuclear program, and prevent Lebanon from becoming the flashpoint of the process. Iran figures into this in a calculated way. The most reliable information points to the United States and Qatar as the main mediators of the ceasefire in Lebanon, while Tehran comes in as an interested party in the broader memorandum with Washington and in putting pressure on its regional allies. The Iranian regime knows that if Hezbollah keeps attacking and Israel responds with force, the broader agreement could fall apart before it even gets off the ground. Israel did not treat the truce as a withdrawal. Israeli officials indicated that the forces would remain in southern Lebanon and that operations against threats would continue. This statement secures Netanyahu's political base and prevents the ceasefire from appearing as a defeat. At the same time, it makes clear that Trump is trying to impose order without completely handing over the narrative to Tehran. He wants to stop the fighting where it needs to stop, but without giving the impression that Israel has abandoned its security posture. Amid all this, Trump also made a symbolic move in the United States. At the White House, he awarded the Medal of Honor to war veterans, including retired Marine Major James Capers Jr., who is 88 years old. Capers was recognized for acts of bravery in Vietnam after decades of waiting. The ceremony served to reinforce the image that Trump likes to project, a commander who honors the military, pressures allies, and negotiates with strength. The tribute to Capers was not a minor detail. It happened at the same time that Trump was facing a diplomatic crisis with Italy and trying to hold on to a deal in the Middle East. For his base, the medal scene reinforces the idea of a strong president connected to veterans and willing to act without asking permission from the European diplomatic elite. For critics, Trump's aggressive style creates unnecessary friction with allies. But the fact is that he continues to occupy the center of the agenda, while opponents and partners react to his moves. The New York Times report on Trump's governing style also resurfaced in this context, citing the president's pursuit of accountability for figures he considers connected to mistakes and attacks against him. One of the examples mentioned involves Chris Krebs, a former election security official who rejected widespread fraud allegations in 2020 and later became the target of an executive order for investigation. This episode helps explain Trump's political method. He doesn't forget those he considers disloyal, doesn't treat internal opposition as a minor detail, and uses presidential power to pressure people who, according to him, have harmed his path. This style also appears in foreign policy. Trump doesn't completely separate diplomacy from personal demands. Meloni was one of the leaders who could communicate better with Trump. Precisely because of her conservative stance and because she had built a personal relationship with him before the new crisis. If even she starts being treated as a target of public irony, more distant European leaders from Trump understand that the environment has become even tougher. American pressure tends to increase, especially when it comes to defense, military spending, borders, trade, and alignment in international crises. I'm Milson Alves, global and internationalist, and my purpose is to keep you accurately informed every day. The news links are in the video description. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end, check out the comments so you can be even more engaged with the Mills and Alves community.